everybody, it's Dr. Glaucoma.
And Lady Glaucoma.
Guess what? We are bringing our live show, Wife and Death, to Lebanon, New Hampshire, September 15th at 7:30 p.m.
That's right. Back to the Upper Valley at the Lebanon Opera House.
So I went to med school at Dartmouth.
Yep, I went to grad school there.
And we wanted to come back and put on a show for the community. We cannot wait. It's going to be a blast. You can find tickets at our website, glaucomflecken.com/speaking, or go to LebanonOperaHouse.org. We'll see you in September.
Knock, knock. Hi.
Welcome, everybody, to Knock Knock Eye with me, your host, Dr. Glaucoma. This is your authentic, credible source for all things eyeball related. You got a question about your eyeballs? Come see me. I mean, don't see me. Like, listen to me. I might be talking about it. I don't know. I've got a couple big topics to you. One, we're going to talk about wind instruments. We're talking about musicians and whether or not they might be at increased risks for glaucoma. So all you musicians out there, I don't know how many professional musicians listen to my podcast, but if you're out there and you play a wind instrument, even maybe some brass instruments, some trumpet players, any tubas out there, any trombones. I'm a former trombone player myself. I played throughout high school. I was in the marching band. I got the long arms for a trombone player. You might be at increased risk for glaucoma if you still play at a very high level. So we'll talk about that after the break. First, I want to talk about research. Now, I've got a love-hate relationship with research. Personally, I don't like research. I like to read research. I love a good abstract. I mean, I'm making all these New England Journal of Medicine videos about all the trials that have nothing to do with ophthalmology. And I find it interesting. So I love to learn things and read it. I have no interest whatsoever in performing any kind of research. If I even smell a p-value somewhere, like anywhere close to me, I'm not going anywhere near it. I don't want to do it. None of the case series. I don't want a case study. If I have an interesting case, I'll gladly give it to somebody else for them to write it up. The whole that phrase just it gives me heartburn to hear somebody that, you know what, you should write this up. How about no? How about I don't do that and do something fun instead? This is me. So I just want you to know where I'm coming from, where my head is at when we get into research topics. All right. I don't want anything to do with it. I'll read it, but you know what? I'm so happy that we have people on this earth that love doing research, because someone's got to do the research. Someone's got to push society and science and medicine and healthcare forward. It's just not going to be me, at least not in that way. Try to do it in other ways, but not for me. And so, because that's kind of where I'm coming from when it comes to academic research, I poke the bear sometimes. I make fun of research. I make fun of publishers. I've done some stuff about Elsevier and Springer, because did you know that they have profit margins that are higher than Google? Yeah. We're talking billions of dollars for a publisher. And how much of that money is actually going into researchers' pockets? Yeah, not much. So, big problem in publishing. This is not news to anybody in academics. But I'm also an outsider. So I'm not in it, but I've done some skits making fun of how it's, what do you get for doing this research? Well, prestige. But prestige doesn't put food on the table. One of the problems I have with the world of research is the emphasis that we in medical education that we put on research. I felt it. I did research in college, honestly, strictly because I had to, because I knew this is something that medical schools care about. So let me go and do some research. I'll run some PCRs. I gained some skills. I know how to pipette. I know how to load a PCR machine. I know how to run a gel electrophoresis, or at least I did at one point. Did I enjoy doing these things? Absolutely not. I got paid to do them. a very small sum of money, but whatever. It was a job. It was a job. I mean, better doing that, I guess, something that might help me progress my career versus working at a bookstore, I guess. And so that's why I did it. But I also felt like I had to like show people that I love this thing. I love doing. Oh yes, of course. Writing my personal statement. I had like 2 paragraphs all about. I love academic discovery. I want to be at the forefront. I was blowing so much smoke up everyone's ass about how much I loved research because I felt like I had to. Looking back on it now and how little actually doing research has like impacted my career, it's comical. Like I was like brainwashed early on to think this is what it means to be a doctor. You have to want to to discover things and that's going to make you good at taking care of patients, which is a bunch of bullshit. That's like, I mean, maybe it helps, but it's not necessary. It's not a requirement to become a good doctor, to be able to perform good research. You just have to be like interested in things. You just have to be inquisitive. But it doesn't have to be like inquisitive, like, oh, I want to do a randomized controlled trial to figure this out. No. Hey, just like, hey, I want to know the answer to that. Hey, let me find some research articles that maybe they can help me figure this out. And if it hasn't been done, well, I hope somebody does it. Maybe you give it to your friend, an idea. Hey, this is an idea for you. You over there, you love research. Hey, do this thing. Here's this. Why don't you do this? That doesn't mean you don't have to do it. You just have to like have the mindset of like wanting to find answers. That doesn't automatically mean it has to be like through the performance of research, like in terms of not just looking things up, right? But like creating new knowledge. It's for some people, it's not for others. But but I just like felt so much anxiety going through college and med school, and even like actually it really ended in residency. But certainly college and med school was like, oh my god, like I see the reports of like people who matched, and they have so many research things going on, and you talk to people or you see like message boards on Student Doctor Network, which is probably the source for so much anxiety that's been poured into the world over the years. They're doing so much research. I'm not doing all of that. Am I going to match? Am I going to be an ophthalmologist? I'm doing something wrong. I'm not smart enough. It's like, and then you just spiral like, oh my God, which leads to you like, like forcing yourself to just, I got to find the research. Where is this research being done? I need to do it. So in med school, we didn't have a Dartmouth didn't at the time did not have a residency program. They do now, but there was no home residency program, which was very challenging because I needed to like get letters from people. Now I had a wonderful mentor, Susan Pepin. She wrote me a letter. I had a research experience with her. It was about OCT. I barely understood any of it. I don't know. I did like an abstract thing, but it was not. I mean, it didn't amount to anything. There was no publication involved. And I remember thinking like, this is boring. I don't want to do this. I would just like to learn about ophthalmology without having to focus on like creating knowledge in the world. And then I did an away rotation because that's what I had to do as someone who's at a med school without a residency program. I needed to go to a residency program and like show off and hopefully get a letter. And so I joined onto a research project at, I won't say what the school was, but it was like a good reputation residency program, academic hospital, the works. And it was an academic, it was someone in cornea. And I helped develop, I put together basically like the research database, like organized like all the data. So I wasn't like doing the data analytics or anything, or even like really writing the paper, but I like did like a lot of the grunt work to like get the Excel spreadsheets going and learned a little bit about that and did some calculations with that. And it was a lot. I spent 5 weeks there doing this as part of my rotation, my away rotation at this place. And I ended up getting a letter, which was ultimately the goal. I got to put this research experience on my CV, on my application. Was it fun? No, it wasn't. But, something you got to do. Sometimes you just got to do things you don't want to do. And then, and this is really the nail in the coffin for me, in regard to my future interest in doing research, is like 4 or 5 years later, I'm thumbing through the recent like American Journal of Ophthalmology, and I come across a research study that looks quite familiar. Turns out it was the one I was working on. This study that I did 5 weeks of work, like doing stuff for, got published in a pretty good journal. I was like, oh, I bet my name's in here. Let's see. Go through the author line, like 12 different authors. Nope. I'm nowhere to be found. I was just got completely left out. Now, at that moment in my life, did I care? No, I didn't need the publication. Like at that point, I was already in residence. I was like, I'm about to graduate and I'm going into private practice. What the hell do I care about research? Like doing research. But it did kind of sting. It's like, man, I did that stuff. And like, I couldn't get like a 7th or 8th author on the author line, like nothing, not even like an honorable mention, like hey, acknowledgement. Hey, great job. Will Flannery. He was a visiting student, did a little bit of work for us. No, nothing. So I was at that point, I was like, you know what? I think I made the right choice. I'm not trying to make this part of my career, but I know there are lots of people that really love it. And that's great. That's great. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because, the NRMP data came out. So this is the match data. So all the information, all the stats, like everything, like of how many what were the scores for all the matched versus unmatched applicants for step 2 and 3 or whatever. You see all the data. How many interviews they went on, and all these things. And one of the data points, one of the big ones, is like the number of research experiences. They break it out based on specialty too. So all the people who matched into like dermatology and the ones who didn't match, they have the data for both groups, and they do that for every single specialty that participates in the NRMP, which is pretty much everybody except for ophthalmology and urology, and maybe there's a couple other ones. So anyway, that data is out now. It came out actually last month. I want to just tell you a little bit about the research data, and this will explain to you, hopefully, why my hottest take for med school is that we should ban research for med students. Unless you're MD, PhD, if you're pursuing a research degree, a PhD, of course, go to town, go ham, have your research, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Just do research. Great. If you're just like an MD, you're pursuing an MD. I think all that research for med students, it should be banned. Should not even be an option. Nope, you cannot engage in research. You can learn research. You can have journal club. You can evaluate research. You can critically analyze research. You can learn all about biostatistics. All of that stuff is great because we do have to be able to analyze research. What's a good study? What's not a good study? I 1,000% think that you don't have to do research to learn what you need to know about research as a practicing doctor. It does not require doing physical research, writing abstracts, writing papers, doing Excel spreadsheets, writing grants, whatever the hell. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about this data. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all the details, but so the first thing is the statistics for research experiences. Now, NRMP, it caps this at 10, apparently, although the data does give us now a minimum and maximum for research experiences. So they might be including like everything research experience, which includes abstracts, presentations, and publications. So here we go. Let's start dermatology. Dermatology. The median number of research experiences for matched folks, 7. The maximum, so the person who had the most, I think this is new. They have this now. They have minimum and maximum. The minimum for every one of these specialties is either 0 or 1. So somebody matched who had 0 research experiences, that actually, and then other people matched with like 1 research experience. That would have been me. I think I had one research experience. But the maximum for dermatology matching, someone matched in dermatology who had 73 research experiences applying to dermatology as a med student. Okay, 73. It gets even better. Let's do neurosurgery. So the minimum, somebody matched in neurosurgery with just one research experience. That must have been a killer personal statement. The median was 6, not too bad. The maximum, 82. 82. Somebody didn't match with 125 research experiences. What are we doing? Okay, let's go down. Orthopedic surgery. Oh, ortho's even better. Somebody had matched with 174 research experiences. The median for ortho was 7.5. For ENT, it was 9. For psychiatry, just as an example of was like median was 4. Pediatrics was 3. That seems more reasonable, right? As a med student, you're learning how to be a doctor. You're an MD. You're learning how to be a medical doctor. You're not learning how to be a PhD. So 3, yeah, in your free time, let's do a few. Let's do a handful of research experiences. Right. 174? Are you kidding me? Okay. I'm going to do even more. So here's the abstracts. So I guess it's like, it's even more impressive. Actually, you know what? Let's take a break. I have a couple more of these statistic things to tell you about. We are very excited to tell you about a healthcare news podcast that just came out. It's called Medlines.
See what we did there? Medlines, headlines.
That's good, right? It's a weekly wrap-up of everything in our field, from breakthrough discoveries to research, politics, pop culture.
Yeah, I think the best way to think of it is kind of like NPR's Up First podcast, but for all things healthcare.
And we're excited to be a part of the team behind it, along with our partners at Human Content and our inaugural sponsor, the New England Journal of Medicine.
Yeah, we wanted there to be a podcast out there for busy healthcare professionals to stay informed on the go without taking a big chunk out of your day.
It's the episode's like 15 minutes.
Yeah, or less.
That's like the length of a cataract surgery.
Exactly.
Episodes of Medlines are out now wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes out every Friday. Check it out. Hey, Kristen.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into the summer months.
Yeah.
All right. I want to tell you something that I've been hearing about from patients.
Okay.
So everybody's using lots of fans and air conditioning, which can lead to dry, irritated eyes.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a chance that those symptoms could be something else entirely.
Oh, I know the answer to this one.
All right, let's hear it.
It could be Demodex blepharitis.
Yes. Oh, you're learning so much about eyeballs. I love it. Actually, there was a study that showed about 60% of patients treated for dry eye also had Demodex blepharitis.
That is a lot.
And the symptoms, like itchy, red, irritated eyelids, they're similar, so it can be confusing. Ask your eye doctor to check for those little tiny collarettes on the lashes.
Oh, those crusties at the base of the eyelashes.
Exactly. And the good news is that there's a prescription eye drop available for Demodex blepharitis. To learn more about Demodex blepharitis, visit miteslovelids.com. Again, that's miteslovelids.com to learn more. This ad is brought to you by Tarsus Pharmaceuticals. Okay, a couple more abstracts. So you've done researched to a good enough level that you can submit an abstract to like a conference or something, right? You're published. It's like a form of publication, I suppose. And so we're whittling it down. Now it's no longer just research experiences, which could be anything. Like you engaged in a series of emails about a possible research question with an attending. Sure, that could be a research experience, right? You talked about what a p-value is with somebody. What a chi-square test. People still do chi-squared. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so abstracts, now we're getting, okay, now you've done a little bit more work there. Dermatology, the median was four abstracts. Neurosurgery, the median was 9. The maximum was 92. There was an applicant for neurosurgery residency who did 92 abstracts. Orthopedic surgery, the maximum, 101. Somebody applied with 101 abstracts. You get my point. What are the other big ones? Plastic surgery, 124 was the maximum. Median was 6. Ortho, median was 5. But those are the median, right? There's a lot higher than, we go higher than that. All right, and then finally, last one is the number of publications. This is really where the rubber meets the road here. Number of publications. People who matched into anesthesiology, median was 2 publications. Hey, it's reasonable. You know, it takes a lot of work to get a publication. At least in my mind, in my non-research brain, I think that seems like a lot of work. Dermatology matched. The median was 9 publications. Maximum 58. Family medicine, median 1 publication. I think that's a damn good job. Get a publication in med school. I'm impressed by that. The maximum 23. Someone with 23 publications in family medicine. Fantastic. Internal medicine, median was 2. Neurosurgery, the median number of publications, manuscripts submitted to a journal and accepted, 12 and a half. The maximum, 56. Neurology, matched. The maximum, 108. Someone had 108 neurology publications. Ortho, the median, 7. Maximum, 84 publications. Can you imagine? Like, you're like a full professor at that point. 84 publications. Here's why I think research should be banned. Because there is no way, I don't care. I will hear your argument, but I'm not going to agree with it. This is not good research. There's no way this is research that's worth taking whatever time away from clinical medicine, learning how to be a doctor, to do 84 freaking publications. What are we doing? And I know for a fact that med students who are all going into these different specialties, they just put each other's names on these publications. So this is not on the students. I want to make that very clear. This is on the academic apparatus where you're just, I honestly think, even if you're not like consciously doing this, it's predatory. It's a predatory practice using med students' anxiety against them. Because people who run labs, it's cheap, it's free labor. Oh, it's so much. Think about all that free labor. 84 publications, free labor. I have to assume that's how the professorships are built, right? I mean, because that's all, who's either first author or the last name on the is going to be the PI. So I think we need to if I was in charge of the LCME or whatever the governing body is, I think it's LCME. I would immediately, I was like, we have to stop med student research until we figure out what the hell is going on here, and just reassess our priorities. We need to be creating empathetic doctors who are thinking about how can they just gain the best clinical skills possible and not have half of their brain in research world thinking how they can game the system in order to get into a competitive residency. Because that's what's happening. That's what's happening. I promised you some ophthalmology stuff. So here we go. I get fired up about research. All right. Hey, and again, I love you researchers. Please keep doing the research. All right. Somebody's got to do it. I'm glad it's you. All right. So in the AAO weekly journal update, August 5th, I learned about a new study. 63 med students, University of Minho in Portugal. Sorry if I'm not saying that right. A cross-sectional design study that looked at, it was published in ophthalmology. They found that wind instrument players, I love this. This is great. Wind instrument players get a significant intraocular pressure spike specifically while playing high-pitched notes. So you might thinking, okay, high pitched notes. So wind instruments. So we're talking, flutes and oboes and saxophones and clarinets. They have to play really high. They're probably, Valsalva pushing real hard to play a really high note. But actually, they also, in that study, they had tympanic membrane monitoring that did not record any Valsalva maneuvers, which had been the previous rationale for why this may happen to musicians. So this is not like the first time this has come up. In fact, there's been multiple prior articles. In 2000, in ophthalmology, there was a study that had a musician play a clarinet, saxophone, and trumpet as loud and as high as possible. IOP peaked at 21 from a baseline of 10. By the way, normal eye pressure is usually between like 10 and 21. Trumpet, the IOP spike was higher, 31. Because clarinet, saxophone, that's a little bit more low resistance instrument. Trumpet, small mouthpiece, you got to push the air. You got to push air hard, right? So higher, they saw a higher eye pressure. This is the same person playing these different instruments. Very talented individual, I guess. And they also showed that there was a decline in the peripheral vision on automated visual field testing. So the conclusion from that study in 2000 was that chronic intermittent intraocular pressure spikes from high-resistant instruments could cause damage consistent with glaucoma and could be misdiagnosed as what we call normal pressure glaucoma. So we have people, most patients are in their, I'd say 50s, 60s, 70s who get diagnosed with glaucoma. We label them as normal pressure glaucoma if they have signs of glaucoma, which means they have an optic nerve that shows damage. They have visual field loss, but they have a normal physiologic eye pressure. Then we think that they have this disease called normal pressure glaucoma. But it's possible that some of these patients, maybe they were professional musicians, and I just never asked them. It's going to be in my repertoire of questions now that I ask. Are you a professional musician? Or a retired professional musician? And there are other ones too. So in the Journal of Glaucoma in 2000, 24 orchestra musicians measured before and after a 90-minute rehearsal of Wagner. So lots of high pressure. So intense musical segments. Mean eye pressure rose from 13 to 15, a 9.6% increase, which was statistically significant. In 2011, brass players spiked their eye pressure at high and middle frequencies, woodwinds only at high frequencies. Oboe had a particularly high increase. Authors concluded that professional wind players are at increased glaucoma risk and should be monitored. this is honestly the first time I'm even hearing about this. I've been an ophthalmologist, practicing ophthalmology for 10 years. I never thought, I've never had not that I would, I guess, if I'm just hearing about it. Certainly like primary care docs and other people aren't going to know about it. But professional musicians, maybe they should be screened for glaucoma. I'm serious. So, I mean, there's not a lot of data out there because I think these studies are probably pretty hard to do because you have to literally be measuring eye pressure while they're playing. That seems very challenging to do, to like tap on the eyeball with the tono pen or do applanation, which is much more accurate way of measuring. Either way, you're still pushing a little thing against the eye. To do that while they're playing a really hard high note on a trumpet sounds like, see, this is research that I love to read, but it sounds like a nightmare to try to put it together. But I'm so glad somebody did because we can talk about it. This is great. I hope a med student was involved in this. I'm sure they probably, maybe they put the database together but didn't get any credit for it. I don't know. So I think this is just great. And it seems like the high resistance instruments, so like oboe, French horn, trumpet, small mouthpieces, small reeds, are the highest risk. A lot of these studies found that lower resistance instruments like flute, tuba, saxophone, they did not have as much of a pressure spike. But this study, again, the prevailing thought was it was because of Valsalva. You're bearing down, but they're not seeing that because they're doing tympanic membrane monitoring. So that leads to the question, well, what's causing it? Why is this happening? Why are these pressure spikes happening in these musicians? Well, I think what it shows, and the authors, honestly, I didn't read through the whole thing, but there's some conjecture. Nobody's quite sure. Has to do with increasing the episcleral venous pressure, which there's several diseases that do that. And basically, it's like the blood kind of gets backed up into the eye, into the tympanic membrane, into the trabecular meshwork, and which prevents outflow of fluid. And so you get this temporary increase in pressure. There's different diseases, Sturge-Weber, a few others I'm not thinking about, like vascular diseases that can cause this type of thing. And maybe there's some physiology going on that's causing that increase in episcleral venous pressure whenever they're straining real hard without actually doing a Valsalva. So it's interesting. And maybe it also speaks to the dynamics, the anatomical dynamics of what's actually happening with a musician, with their soft tissue, with their pharynx, with their larynx, with everything up above the diaphragm. Is probably more complicated than I'm aware of, and that maybe even the researchers were aware of, to figure out exactly where that increased pressure is coming from. So anyway, there you go. If you're a professional musician and you play a high resistance instrument, you might, and we're talking like these, in this study, it was like 1,000 hours. Like these were like high level musicians. If you just play at your church, once a week, for an hour, this is not going to be an issue for you, right? But if you're like doing heavy exercise and training, maybe go see an ophthalmologist. Just a little monitoring once a year. Go in to see an eye doctor, let him do a visual field test on you every so often, check your optic nerves, make sure everything's healthy. And that is it for Knock Knock Eye. Thank you all for listening. I am your host, Dr. Glaucoma. I want to thank our executive producers, Aaron Cordy, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Burke. Another one of our producers, Matt Braddock, who helped me with this research. Our editor and engineer is Jason Pertiza. Our music is by Omer Ben Zvi. Knock Knock Eye is a human content production. I'll see you next week.
Knock, knock, goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Or join the party over on Patreon, where you get early access episodes, hang out with us, get lots of exclusive bonus content. Hope you subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.